The crystalline towers of Valdria pierced the violet sky like frozen lightning, their surfaces catching the twin suns and scattering rainbow prisms across the floating gardens below. Marcus Webb stood at the landing platform, adjusting the collar of his diplomatic uniform while trying not to stare too obviously at the alien architecture that defied every principle of human engineering. 6 months of training at the Interstellar Relations Bureau hadn't quite prepared him for the reality of stepping onto a world where gravity was a suggestion and beauty was a weapon. Ambassador Webb, a tall Valdrian woman, materialized from the shimmering air, her silver skin marked with intricate patterns that shifted like living tattoos. Her crimson eyes assessed him with cold precision. "I am Lady Morgana, first advisor to King Aldrich. Follow me." The king does not appreciate tardiness. Marcus fell into step beside her, his human stride awkward compared to her fluid grace. The palace corridors were deliberately disorienting. He realized angles that shouldn't connect, staircases that curved through impossible dimensions. A test for visitors, perhaps, or simply the Valdrian aesthetic of making everything, including architecture, into a statement of superiority. "I trust your journey was acceptable?" Morgana's tone suggested she neither trusted nor cared. "Enlightening," Marcus replied carefully. "Though, I admit, I'm still adjusting to your world's temporal fluidity. My chronometer insists I've been traveling for 3 days, but my body feels like it's been 3 hours. Time moves differently here. You'll adapt or you won't." She paused before an enormous doorway, carved from a single piece of amber crystal. "A word of advice, Ambassador. The king summoned you because Earth's technology interests him. Nothing more. Do not mistake diplomatic courtesy for friendship. And do not—" She hesitated, her patterns flickering darker. "Do not let compassion cloud your judgment regarding certain members of the royal family." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, the doors opened. The throne room was a masterpiece of controlled chaos, floating platforms at various heights, each occupied by Valdrian nobles whose clothing seemed to be made of light itself. At the center, elevated above all others, sat King Aldrich on a throne of black crystal that pulsed with inner fire. His presence commanded the space, but Marcus's attention was immediately drawn to the figure beside him. She sat in what appeared to be an elegant chair, though Marcus noticed the subtle glow of repulsor technology beneath it. Her long silver hair cascaded over shoulders, draped in deep blue fabric that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her eyes, though open, held a distant quality that Marcus recognized. She was blind, and the way she held herself, perfectly still in that hovering chair, suggested she couldn't walk. Princess Celestin, Marcus realized. The daughter no one mentioned in the briefings. Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth. King Aldrich's voice resonated through the chamber. "You come bearing proposals of technological exchange and cultural understanding." Marcus bowed, grateful for the hours of protocol training. "Your Majesty, Earth is honored to establish formal relations with Valdria. We believe our peoples have much to offer each other." "Indeed." Aldrich's expression remained neutral. "My advisors tell me your species has developed quantum communication methods that surpass even our crystal networks. Impressive for such a young civilization. We've been fortunate in our discoveries, Your Majesty, though I confess Valdrian architectural technology remains far beyond our understanding." A slight smile touched the king's face. Diplomatic and honest, refreshing. He gestured toward the princess beside him. "My daughter, Princess Celestin, oversees our cultural exchange programs. She will be your primary liaison during your stay." The reaction in the room was immediate and subtle, a collective intake of breath, a ripple of whispered conversation quickly suppressed. Morgana's patterns flashed dark red for just an instant. Marcus didn't need to understand Valdrian politics to recognize discomfort when he saw it. Princess Celestin's expression didn't change. but her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on the armrests of her chair. When she spoke, her voice was clear and carried an edge that suggested intelligence and frustration in equal measure. "Welcome to Valdria. Ambassador Webb, I hope you find your time here educational." There was something in her tone, a challenge, perhaps, or a warning. Marcus found himself studying her more carefully. Despite her blindness, she held her head at an angle that suggested she was somehow aware of everyone in the room. Her face, though marked by the same silver skin as all Valdrians, had a delicate structure that would have been called beautiful in any culture. But it was the set of her jaw, the proud line of her shoulders, that truly caught his attention. This was someone who refused to be diminished by circumstance. "I'm certain I will, Your Highness," Marcus replied. "I've always believed the best way to understand a culture is through those who see it from unique perspectives." Celestine's blind eyes seemed to focus on him for the first time, and a ghost of a smile touched her lips. "How diplomatic of you, Ambassador. Though I suspect you'll find my perspective is not valued by most of the court. Then most of the court is composed of fools." The words left Marcus's mouth before his diplomatic training could stop them. The throne room fell silent. Morgana's patterns flashed crimson. Even King Aldrich raised an eyebrow, but Princess Celestine laughed a genuine, surprised sound that seemed to startle her as much as everyone else. "Well," she said, her smile widening, "perhaps this cultural exchange will be more interesting than I anticipated." She turned her chair slightly, the technology responding to some neural command Marcus couldn't detect. "Father, if you'll excuse us, I should show Ambassador Webb to his quarters. I'm sure he's exhausted from his journey." King Aldrich studied them both for a long moment before nodding. "Of course. We will speak more tomorrow, Ambassador, about these technological exchanges." As Celestine's chair glided toward a side exit, Marcus hurried to follow, acutely aware of dozens of eyes tracking their departure. The door closed behind them, muffling the immediate eruption of gossip. "That was either very brave or very stupid," Celestine said once they were alone in a corridor of flowing water walls. "I haven't decided which." "Probably both," Marcus admitted. But it was also true. She navigated the corridors with practiced ease, her chair moving in perfect harmony with her intentions. "You don't know anything about me, Ambassador. You don't know why the court considers me a liability, or why my father assigns me to duties that keep me out of important negotiations." "You're right," Marcus agreed. "I don't know your story. But I know what I saw in that throne room, a woman who's had to fight for every scrap of respect she's gotten, who's probably smarter than half the nobles combined, and who's been systematically pushed aside because people can't see past physical limitations." Celestine stopped abruptly, turning her chair to face him. For a moment, she said nothing, and Marcus wondered if he'd overstepped catastrophically. Then her expression softened into something vulnerable and hopeful. "You really are either very brave or very stupid," she said quietly. "Most people barely acknowledge my existence. They speak around me as if I'm a decorative element of the throne room rather than a person. Then most people are missing out." She studied him with those unseeing eyes, and Marcus had the unnerving sensation that she perceived far more than vision could provide. "My quarters are in the East Tower," she said finally. "Yours are in the West. Traditionally, we would part ways here, and you'd be escorted by servants." "And non-traditionally?" A mischievous smile played at her lips. "Non-traditionally, you could join me for evening refreshment. I'd very much like to hear about Earth, and I suspect you have questions about Valdria that the official briefings won't answer." Marcus knew accepting could complicate his diplomatic mission. Morgana's warning echoed in his mind. But looking at Celestine proud, isolated, and extending what was clearly a rare invitation, he found he didn't care about complications. "I'd be honored, Your Highness." Celestin, she corrected. If we're going to scandalize the court by actually speaking to each other, we might as well use first names. Then I'm Marcus. As they glided through the palace corridors together, Marcus caught glimpses of courtiers, watching them with expressions ranging from shock to disapproval. He realized that simply by walking beside her, by treating her as an equal worth, his time he was breaking some unspoken rule of Valdrian society. Good, he thought. Some rules deserve to be broken. Celestin's private chambers occupied the highest level of the East Tower, where the walls were made entirely of transparent crystal that shifted from clear to opaque at her mental command. Marcus stepped inside and found himself surrounded by what appeared to be organized chaos star charts projected in midair, books in various alien languages stacked on floating shelves, and musical instruments he couldn't begin to name scattered across elegant furniture. "I apologize for the mess," Celestin said, though her tone suggested she wasn't sorry at all. "My handmaiden Thesa constantly threatens to organize everything, but I know where things are by their energy signatures." Energy signatures? Marcus accepted the seat she gestured toward, a chair that molded itself to his form. "Everything has a resonance pattern. Your people would call it an electromagnetic field, perhaps. But it's more complex than that." She moved to a cabinet that opened at her approach, retrieving what looked like crystal decanters filled with luminous liquid. "I may not see in the traditional sense, but I perceive the world through energy, vibration, temperature shifts. In some ways, I see more than those with ordinary vision." Marcus watched as she poured 2 glasses with perfect precision, never spilling a drop. "Yet the court treats you as if you're helpless." "They treat me as if I'm broken," Celestin corrected, handing him a glass. "There's a difference. To them, I'm a tragedy, the perfect princess who was supposed to unite kingdoms through marriage, rendered unmarriageable by a childhood accident." She settled into her chair, her expression hardening. "My mother died bringing me into this world, and then I had the audacity to become disabled in a shuttle crash when I was 12. I'm a reminder of everything my father lost." "I don't think he sees it that way." "No?" Celestin's laugh was bitter. "Then why does he keep me hidden away? Why assign me to cultural exchanges with distant worlds rather than the political negotiations happening in our own system? I'm brilliant at strategy, Marcus. I speak 17 languages. I can sense when someone is lying by the way their energy shifts. But none of that matters, because I can't walk downstairs or see a treaty document." Marcus sipped the drink. It tasted like starlight and honey, if such a thing were possible. "Then he's a fool, too. Though I suspect it's more complicated than that. Everything in Valdrian politics is complicated." Celestin's tone softened slightly. "My father loves me. I know that. But he's also a king who needs heirs that the noble houses will accept, alliances that strengthen our position. I'm a liability in their eyes, and every time he defends me, it costs him political capital. So you're sacrificed for political convenience." "I'm managed," she said quietly. "Kept comfortable and out of the way, given just enough responsibility to maintain the fiction that I'm valued, but never enough to actually matter." The raw pain in her voice made Marcus's chest tighten. He set down his glass and leaned forward. "For what it's worth, I think you're the most interesting person I've met on this planet so far. And I've met a lot of people today." Celestin turned her face toward him, and he could see the vulnerability beneath her practiced composure. "You say that now. Wait until you've been here a few weeks and realize that associating with me damages your diplomatic standing. Wait until Lady Morgana starts suggesting you'd accomplish more by working with literally anyone else. I didn't come here to make friends with Lady Morgana. Then why did you come?" The question was direct, challenging. Earth sent dozens of qualified diplomats. "Why you specifically?" Marcus considered his answer carefully. Because I asked to come. When I read about Valdria in the briefings, I saw a civilization that had achieved incredible things-dimensional architecture, energy manipulation, cultural preservation spanning millennia. But I also saw gaps in what wasn't being said, questions that weren't being answered. He met her unseeing gaze, like why the royal family had a daughter no one mentioned in official communications. You investigated me? Her tone was unreadable. I investigated the mystery. When I found references to you in older documents, I wanted to understand why you'd been erased from current ones. The more I learned, the more I realized this assignment was about more than technology exchanges. What was it about? Marcus took a breath. Understanding how a supposedly enlightened civilization treats those who don't fit their perfect molds. And maybe he paused, wondering if honesty was wise, then decided he'd already crossed that line, meeting someone who'd been through hell and came out stronger for it. Celestine was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. You're either the most genuine person I've ever met, or the most skilled manipulator. I promise you it's the former, though I suppose a skilled manipulator would say that too. She laughed, the sound breaking the tension. I want to trust you, Marcus, more than I've wanted to trust anyone in years. But I've learned that hope is dangerous. Then don't hope, Marcus said. Just give me a chance to prove myself. No expectations, no promises. Just ... Let me get to know you. The real you, not the image the court has created. Before Celestine could respond, the door chimed. Her expression shifted from vulnerable to guarded in an instant. Enter. A young Valdrian woman slipped inside, her silver skin marked with servant patterns. But her eyes held intelligence and warmth that suggested she was far more than just staff. Forgive the interruption, Your Highness, she said, bowing slightly. But you asked to be informed when Prince Davian's ship entered orbit. Celestine's jaw tightened. How long until he arrives? 2 hours, perhaps less. He's requesting an immediate audience with the king. Of course he is. Celestine turned to Marcus. I should explain. Prince Davian of the Kethran Empire is ... persistent. He's been proposing marriage for the past 3 years. And you've been refusing for 3 years? Marcus guessed. Refusing requires that he actually ask me, Celestine said dryly. He negotiates with my father, as if I'm property to be bartered. The Kethran Empire wants access to Valdrian technology. I'm the price they're willing to pay a disabled princess for advanced weapon systems. Thesa, the handmaiden, moved to Celestine's side with practiced ease. Your Highness, Lady Morgana has already begun preparing for a formal dinner tomorrow night. She's requested you wear the ceremonial gown. The one that makes me look like a porcelain doll? How delightful. Celestine's sarcasm was sharp enough to cut crystal. Thesa, this is Ambassador Marcus Webb of Earth. Marcus. This is Thesa, my friend and apparently the only person in this palace who doesn't treat me like I'm made of spun glass. Thesa studied Marcus with open curiosity. The human who called the court fools. You've caused quite a stir, Ambassador. The betting pools have already started on how long you'll last. Betting pools? Marcus raised an eyebrow. On whether you'll be reassigned within a week, or simply learn to ignore me like everyone else, Celestine explained. The odds apparently favor reassignment. Then someone's about to lose a lot of money, Marcus said firmly. Thesa's smile widened. I like him, Your Highness. He's either fearless or completely unaware of how dangerous court politics can be. Probably both, Celestine murmured. But there was warmth in her voice now. The next morning, Marcus found himself in another interminable meeting with Valdrian trade ministers, discussing quantum encryption protocols and cultural exchange parameters. His mind kept wandering to Celestine, the way she'd opened up to him. the vulnerability beneath her sharp wit, the subtle hope in her voice when she'd asked him to prove himself. "Ambassador Webb, your thoughts on the proposed timeline?" Marcus snapped back to attention, realizing he'd missed the last few minutes of discussion. "I apologize. Could you repeat the question?" Lady Morgana's patterns flashed with irritation. "This is precisely why personal entanglements are discouraged during diplomatic missions. They cloud judgment and waste valuable time." "I wasn't aware I had personal entanglements," Marcus said carefully. "You spent 3 hours in Princess Celestine's chambers last night," Morgana stated. "The entire court is discussing it. Some find it amusing. Others find it concerning. I was learning about Valdrian culture from someone uniquely qualified to teach it." "The princess is uniquely qualified to teach many things," Morgana said coldly. "None of them relevant to your mission here. I suggest you remember that Earth's technological partnership with Valdria depends on maintaining appropriate professional boundaries." Marcus felt anger rising, but forced it down. "With respect, Lady Morgana, Princess Celestine is the royal liaison assigned to me by King Aldrich himself. I'm simply following His Majesty's directive." Before Morgana could respond, the conference room doors opened and a guard entered, bowing low. "Forgive the interruption. King Aldrich requests Ambassador Webb's presence in the throne room immediately." The throne room was more crowded than yesterday, nobles packed onto every floating platform. King Aldrich sat on his dark crystal throne, but today he wasn't alone. Standing beside him pointedly on the side opposite, Celestine's empty chair, was a tall figure in ornate armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal. Prince Davian of Kethra was handsome by any species standards, with sharp features and eyes that calculated everything they saw. He turned as Marcus entered, his gaze dismissive. "Ah, the human," Davian said, his accent placing strange emphasis on certain syllables. "I've heard interesting things about you. Ambassador Webb." "All true, I hope," Marcus replied, moving to stand in the formal receiving area. "That depends on your definition of interesting." Davian smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I understand you've been spending considerable time with Princess Celestine." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "The princess is my assigned liaison for cultural matters." "How fortunate for you. Though I wonder what culture you're learning in her private chambers." The innuendo was clear, and several nobles gasped. Before Marcus could respond, Celestine's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Perhaps we should discuss what you're learning in your private negotiations with weapons manufacturers, Davian. I hear the Kethron military is quite interested in our dimensional shielding technology." Her chair glided into the throne room from a side entrance, Thesa walking beside her. Celestine's expression was serene, but Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. "Princess Celestine," Davian bowed with exaggerated courtesy, "as radiant as ever. I trust you're well?" "I'm exactly as I was the last time you visited. Blind, unable to walk, and utterly uninterested in your proposals." Her words were delivered with devastating politeness. "Perhaps your perspective will change when you understand what I'm offering." Davian turned to King Aldrich. "Your Majesty, I've come with a formal proposal from my father, the Kethron Emperor. A marriage alliance between our houses, solidified with technology exchanges that would benefit both our peoples." "We've discussed this before," Aldrich said carefully, "but not with the added incentive I'm prepared to offer today." Davian's smile widened. "The Kethran Empire controls the Zephyrgate network, the fastest trade routes in this sector. Marry your daughter to me, and Valdria gains unrestricted access. Refuse, and well." He shrugged. "The gates remain closed to your merchants." The room erupted in whispers. Marcus could see the political calculation happening in real time. This wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was economic leverage. Celestine's hands gripped her armrest so tightly, her knuckles paled. "So now we've moved from courtship to extortion. How romantic." I'm offering you a chance to be useful, Davian said, his tone sharpening. Your father wastes your potential, keeping you locked away. As my wife, you'd have purpose-producing heirs, maintaining household affairs. Things suited to your ... limitations. Marcus felt his fists clench. Around the room, reactions varied. Some nobles nodded agreement. Others looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke against Davian's words. Except Celestin. My limitations, she said, her voice dangerously quiet, include being able to read energy signatures. Right now, yours is spiking with anxiety and aggression. You're threatened by something. Her blind eyes seemed to pierce through him. By someone. Someone who reminds you that I'm not just a political pawn to be traded. Davian's composure cracked for just an instant. You speak of the human? A barbaric species barely capable of interstellar travel? What threat could he possibly pose? The threat of treating me like a person instead of a transaction, Celestin said. The throne room fell silent. King Aldrich shifted uncomfortably on his throne, caught between political necessity and his daughter's defiance. Marcus knew he should stay silent. Let the royal family handle their own politics. But looking at Celestin proud and alone against forces, trying to reduce her to property, he couldn't. Your Highness, Marcus addressed Davian directly. With respect, threatening economic sanctions to force a marriage seems like the action of someone who knows he can't win the princess's regard through honest means. The room gasped. Morgana's patterns flashed crimson. Even King Aldrich looked shocked. Davian's expression turned murderous. You dare. I dare state the obvious, Marcus continued. You're not interested in Princess Celestin. You're interested in what marrying her gets you. That's not a proposal. That's a hostile acquisition. And what are you interested in, human? Davian stepped forward, his armor humming with barely contained energy. Perhaps you think to acquire her yourself? Take a Valdrian princess back to your primitive world as a trophy? I'm interested in treating her with the respect she deserves. Something you clearly can't comprehend. Davian moved with shocking speed, closing the distance between them. His hand went to the energy blade at his hip. Perhaps we should settle this the old way. A formal challenge. Davian, enough? King Aldrich's voice carried authority, but there was uncertainty in it too. The political implications were spiraling out of control. The human insulted my honor and my intentions toward your daughter, Davian said. By Valdrian law, I have the right to demand satisfaction. Marcus met his gaze steadily. What kind of challenge? No, Celestin said firmly. Marcus, don't. The trial of worth, Davian announced. 3 tests over 3 days. Combat, wisdom, and devotion. The winner earns the right to court the princess formally. This is absurd, Celestin protested. I'm not a prize to be won. Actually, Morgana interrupted. And Marcus heard satisfaction in her voice. By ancient law, any suitor may invoke the trial, and once invoked, it must be completed. Father, you can't allow this. Celestin turned her chair toward the king. Aldrich looked torn, his gaze moving between his daughter, the angry Catherine Prince, and the human who just appended careful diplomatic negotiations. The law is clear. If Ambassador Webb accepts the challenge, the trial must proceed. Marcus looked at Celestin. Her expression was anguished, pleading with him to refuse. But he also saw something else beneath the fear, a desperate hope that someone might actually fight for her. Not for political gain, but because she mattered. I accept, Marcus said. The throne room erupted in chaos.